you're buying real estate, there are two areas you need to pay very close attention to. And without these two, you are not the owner of that property. And both are equally as important as the other. So what are these two things? First is you have to make sure you have proper documentation showing you're the new owner of that property. And the second is that you need to take possession of the property. Not to worry, I'll be breaking down in this video everything you need to know about how to take possession of a property and documentation, proper documentation of a property. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, real estate is fixed. What does this mean? You can't carry it. If you buy any other type of asset, for instance, you're going to physically carry it and take it to wherever you want. But if you buy a plot of land at Chevron Drive, for example, it's going to be there till eternity. If nothing happens to it, hopefully if there's no natural disaster, it's basically going to maintain that same location. So then how do you show that you have bought property? Alright, now the first is that you have to ensure that there's a proper document showing that ownership has passed to you. When you're buying real estate, we usually draft two documents, the contract of sale and the deed of assignment. Essentially, the contract of sale, you could call it a more elaborate receipt. But because it is real estate, you can't just issue just a receipt alone. So we usually make it a more elaborate contract where we say a contract of sale. But it does not yet transfer title to the person who is buying. So in situations, for instance, where you are buying property in off-plan arrangements, or where you are buying property and paying over a period of time in installments, what you're giving at the start of that transaction is a contract of sale, showing that yes, you're buying this certain property located, the property is sufficiently described, the names of the parties are stated, how you will make payments is stated, the entire figure that you're supposed to pay, when payment will be finished, when allocation will be granted to you, and when the deed of assignment would be drafted in your name. Everything is included there. So that is that for the contract of sale. Now, the deed of assignment is the document that effectively transfers the ownership to you. And the law is very clear that when you are buying real estate, there has to be documentary evidence transferring ownership. It must be by a deed. And so if you're buying, it's a deed of assignment. If it is a gift, it's a deed of gift. But whichever way, it has to be by a deed. So the deed of assignment transfers ownership from the old owner, that's the seller, to the buyer. And of course, it must be properly drafted. It must contain all the necessary details. So you want to ensure you get an experienced lawyer to guide you through this procedure. Another thing that I need to also state is that when you're drafting a deed of assignment, it is usually drafted by the buyer's lawyer. So you are the buyer, you get your lawyer to draft it. However, there are some scenarios where, for instance, if you're buying from a company and maybe their service buildings, service apartments in an estate, and they want some form of uniformity, they might insist that they are the ones who will draft that deed of agreement. But whichever way, ensure you have your own lawyer who will go through it and review it for you. Reviewing means explaining to you what's in the contract so that you can be sure of what you're signing. You don't just want to blindly sign any documents. You need your own professionals, all right? So that's very important. And that's for the first on documentation. Now the second point is then possession. And what does this mean? Possession is physically occupying the property. Now if you're buying a house, for instance, it's pretty easy to physically occupy the property, isn't it? You simply get the keys, and of course, if you're buying a built house, you should change the locks. So you're not going to continue using the locks that the people who built it put there. So you want to change your own locks, and then it effectively becomes yours. Now, the tricky area is where you're buying land and you're not developing it immediately. So I usually advise my clients, don't buy land and leave it fallow. So you want to do a short fence around it, no matter how small. You want to, if you can afford it, you can do a guest house. If you are buying real estate, for instance, for flipping, you want to buy and resell later, it still doesn't stop you from taking possession, all right? Even if it is within a gated estate, do a short fence around it so you can know this is where my land starts and ends, all right? Now, if it is in an area where people already live in, so you have neighbors, make friends with your neighbors and let them know, oh, I bought this property here and I'm the owner, and in case you see anyone who is strange, please let me know, this is my phone number. These are ways of securing your property. If it is land that can be farmed on, in fact, you could use the land for the meantime and it will bring you income. You could lease it out to those who would farm on it. But ensure that you issue them receipts. Don't just give out land for people to farm on it. You need some documentary evidence showing that they are on the land because you are allowed them. If it's not going to be a really substantial amount of money, that's pretty fine. But ensure you have something showing you leased the land to them for a certain period of time. In addition, you also want to do, if you can do a foundation on it, pretty much. If you can do a small gatehouse, but ensure that you don't buy land and leave it alone for extended period of times. And of course, ensure you visit the land. So that's how to retain possession. Because if someone trespasses on the land, you would have to go to court to then get back possession of that property. Yes, you have documentation, but you cannot just go ahead and take the law into your hands. So this, which is why I always preach a gospel of preventing you losing possession to my clients. All right, so it's very important. If you're in diaspora and you have land, you want to make sure that you follow this. Now, if it's within an estate and it was sold to you by a company, fantastic. All right, so you can even I know some companies offer those services. Some realtors also offer services where they will help you monitor your property after you bought it. Some companies will tell you they can help you maintain the plot, so when it's bushy, they will cut it and then they will charge you for that. But either way, ensure that possession, you don't lose possession. It's very, very important. Another important tip is, when you are doing any real estate transactions, make sure you have your own professionals on board. It's very important. Your own surveyor, your own lawyer, any professional that you will need. Don't just rely as a person buying on the professional of the other party. Have someone on board who is representing your interests. So those are the two main areas you need to pay very close attention to when you're buying real estate in Nigeria. I hope this has been helpful. If it has been, let me know in the comment section below, and if you have questions, feel free to type them and I'll be glad to answer them. And yes, you should go ahead and watch this video, because I stated in that video step by step how to buy real estate in Nigeria without getting scammed. You would really love it. See you soon.